Hey, so my name is Cherie. Most of my friends call me Ree, and I am the host of a podcast called Psalms to God. There is a corresponding blog as well with the same name, and I have been maintaining that blog for probably about 8 years. The blog has gone through a couple of name changes, but overall, I've been blogging for about 8 years, and the podcast has been around for about 2 years. And I guess that's been going well. But I feel like it is time to expand and to join the YouTube community. The main reason that I wanted to join YouTube is because there's one aspect of me or my daily life that is not really captured on the blog or in the podcast, and that is my journaling. I got a lot of questions about it, particularly pre COVID, when I actually was out and about around people and people would see my journals. And so I wanted to create a space where I could share that as well and show people kind of how that plays into my studying the word, how that plays into my note taking and learning about various topics, etc., etc. So I decided to create this YouTube channel. So I started journaling in middle school. I think it was middle school. I pretty much always had a notebook and pen and paper with me growing up. Even in elementary school, I used to write short stories and things like that. But it was pretty basic, like just a regular notebook with lined paper and pencil. It wasn't really artistic or anything like that. I remember I had a seventh grade English teacher that got me into poetry. And so I started kind of playing around with poetry. And so I would write poetry in journals, but it still was just the basic spiral bound lined paper notebook that I was writing in. And once I got to high school, I had another English teacher who suggested that I take up actual journaling, like purposeful journaling, where I'm like consciously keeping this notebook for that purpose. And that is where my journaling began. I'm not going to show you that notebook right now. I'll probably do a separate video where I go through that and show you kind of a process, like a timeline of where I started with journaling to where I am now. But I do actually still have that notebook, and it is very basic compared to what I have now. So I do want to do a video on that just to give people inspiration to show you that everybody starts somewhere and it's not always pretty in the beginning, but it can turn into something beautiful if you keep at it over time. So my first real journal was basically poetry, random quotes that I came up with in my head, and short stories. Over time, I kind of got away from journaling, mainly because I studied STEM fields in college. I am actually a software engineer. And so in college and grad school, things got really hectic, and I still had pretty neat note taking skills, but I didn't really have time to write and to journal. And then as I got into the PhD process and my mind went a little, I got into the bullet journal system. And the reason I got into bullet journaling is because I was having trouble focusing my schedule. But I didn't need a calendar, like a planner. It wasn't that I had, like 8 o'clock be here, 7 o'clock be here. I don't know why I just said those out of order, but whatever. I didn't have like scheduled appointments that I needed to go to, but I had a lot of things. I had task lists and ideas and things like that. And the bullet journal system seemed super perfect for the whole school process, grad school, PhD research. It just worked. So I started playing around with the bullet journal system, and I started looking up things on YouTube. And man, dot grid paper changed my life, period. Um, dot grid paper is awesome. I started playing around with different notebooks there. I started following a couple of YouTubers like Boho Berry, Amanda Rach Lee, big time bullet journal celebrities, I guess, in the YouTube world. And that was kind of how I got started into my current style of journaling. And as I graduated, I realized I didn't really need the bullet journal as much. And I don't know, maybe my life is just really simple, or maybe I don't know, maybe the way my brain works for events versus tasks is different. I don't know. But once I graduated from graduate school, the bullet journal didn't really fit my life quite the same way. But I still enjoyed journaling, the artistic part of it, the writing part of it. And so my journaling kind of phased into something else. It's kind of a combination of note taking, Bible study, and still poetry. I went back to a poetry journal recently during COVID because writing keeps me sane. And if you're struggling with your sanity, I highly suggest trying to journal or to do some sort of writing. Um, but anyway, I now have 4 journals that I keep, and I want to talk about those, I guess, to introduce my channel, because I have a feeling that most of my content will be coming from these 4 journals that I keep. So the first journal that I have is this one. I should also probably add that I started creating my own journals because, one, it's cheaper than buying them, and two, I'm just very particular about everything. I think that'll probably come out in my videos for those who don't know me personally. I'm just very particular about everything. So for starters, some people hate spiral bound. I love a spiral bound notebook. This is one of the things I hate about the Leuchtturm and the Moleskine, because I want to be able to open this and do this. Like, I'm not trying to write with something all the way out here. I also hate the A5 paper. Give me a full size sheet of paper. That is too small. It's just too small. So I prefer these types of styles. And I also like thick paper. Like, this is mostly, like, I use cardstock for my notebooks because I don't want the pens bleeding through. I want to be able to use whatever pen I want to. So because I'm particular, I have a binding machine. One day I will also do a video on making a journal, but I had to buy some more paper before I could do that. But yeah, so I have a binding machine to create this, and then I just buy spirals. I have a laminator for creating nice covers, and I just bind my own notebooks. So this is my, I guess, main journal at the moment. It says woven together. There's like a lot of glare, so it's kind of hard. I kind of created this cover myself, and I don't know. I was bored one day when I created this cover. This is kind of like it's kind of like a war binder, I guess. I will show it to you under the camera where I can just flatten it out. But so this is my primary journal, and this is where I kind of use it like a war binder. I keep a lot of different lists, Bible studies, ideas, word studies, things like that in it. My other journal is this one. I made this one later in the game, so I feel like it's better quality, or it looks better. This looks like a legit journal that I bought from the store, whereas the other ones that you'll see look a little janky because they were some of my first attempts at making a notebook. So I like this one, has like a clear spiral bound, which I thought was kind of cool. And I got one of the little things so that you can round the edges of the pages, which made me feel pretty awesome. And this is just like a fancy paper that I bought and laminated. But this is my new poetry journal. And when I do the video showing my original poetry journal versus where I am now, you will also see why I like this, because it has the same vibe and the same kind of style as that. But this is my poetry journal. I also have a scripture journal. So I just started this one, and I plan to do a series of Bible studies out of this particular journal. it started out as something totally different, and then I repurposed it to use it as the scripture journal. I actually kind of hate this notebook because I used regular printer paper, and so things kind of bleed through, and I'm not really a fan. But I do like the size. I thought that this kind of square size was kind of cool and fun, and it had paper in it that had not been used, and I felt bad about wasting paper and wasting trees. So this is my scripture journal. And the last journal I have, I don't really know if it's going to come up on the channel, but just in case, this, so fancy, right? No, you weren't expecting that. This is my Hebrew journal. I've been studying Hebrew and learning it. I've taken one class online. I'm in the middle of a second one. And so this is the journal that I use to keep my notes in for Hebrew. So that's what this is for. So basically, I keep these 4 notebooks around, and anytime that I'm feeling like writing or doodling or whatever, it goes into one of these notebooks, and that's what kind of keeps me sane. I have gotten a couple of questions about how I go into details or how I do these things. And so I wanted to be able to show you guys and to bring you with me on some of these journeys, some of these studies that I do. So that is why I started this channel. So welcome to my channel. And, bear with me in the first couple of months, I guess, as I'm figuring out exactly the direction that I want this to go in. And as I figure out what equipment works and what doesn't, and what looks and sounds good and doesn't, and figure out how to edit. Because I have no idea what I'm doing. But there's always a beginning. So if you want to stay tuned and see things, like, subscribe. I think there's a little bell that you're supposed to click to get notified. Guys, I'm a YouTube newbie. So, yeah.